everyone. Today's the day. Finally talking about Howl's Moving Castle. Yeah, and yes, the book was better than the movie. Sorry. Oh man. Anyway, once a year I reread Howl's Moving Castle. Sometimes I watch the movie with it, sometimes I don't. I did this time because I did want to, possibly make a video out of it. And yeah, here's my notes. It's not actually screenplays about my cat like The Notebook claims to be. It is my notes on Howl's Moving Castle. Here's my notes from reading the book. And these are my notes from the movie. Not too many notes. I didn't fill the whole notebook, but I mean, I could have if I wrote bigger, but yeah. And, I could have written more notes, but my hand was getting tired, so yeah. One way to ruin your favorite book is to write extensive notes on it while you're reading it. I mean, I still enjoyed myself. I still loved it by the end, but still, yeah, I don't recommend reading your favorite book and writing down notes for every single chapter like you're in school. Because I remember hating reading in school, and now I remember why. But anyway, we're gonna get on with it. What an intro. Did I even say my name? My name's Allicyn, in case you didn't know from the username. Allicyn is my name. I'm obsessed with Howl's Moving Castle, and yes, it was better than the movie, and will remain to be better than the movie, because what in the heck is the movie? We'll get into it. Let's go. Okay, now that that mess of an intro is over, yeah, Howl's Moving Castle. I read it once a year, like I already said. It is my favorite book. It'll remain to be my favorite book, probably until the end of my life. Yeah, I have 4 copies of it. These 2 are the sequels. I have 4 copies of Howl's Moving Castle. One of them is very special to me. Yeah, I'm trying to collect every edition out there that is available. I don't have any of the earlier editions because, well, they're impossible to find, and when you do find them, they're like $300, and I'm not at the point in my life where I can just spend $300 on a single book. Anyway, moving on. I have 4 copies of Howl's Moving Castle. I have this little card illustrated by Maggie Stiefvater that she did for her Howl's Moving Castle read-along 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, years ago. Anyway, I use it as a bookmark while I'm reading the book. Anyway, yeah. Howl's Moving Castle. I have a print from the movie that was a gift from my best friend, and my lamp. I guess you can't really tell that it's Howl's Moving Castle because it's on. But yeah, if you can read that, it says Howl's Moving Castle. I made it with a edition of the book that was falling apart. And it was just, wasting space on my shelf. It was literally split in half. It was in 2 halves before I turned it into a lamp that I love and cherish every day. Anyway, moving on. I love Howl's Moving Castle. And we're going to get into the reasons why. Why the book is better than the movie. You have no idea how many clips I have filmed and deleted because I keep going into every single little detail of the plot, and that is completely unnecessary. I don't need to read the whole book to you. This is what I get for being unprepared. I do have my notes. But yeah, the thing with my notes is that it's basically all of the whole movie. I mean, the whole book. Yeah. Here I was wanting to do this video for so long, and I thought I was prepared to do it. And I am prepared to do it. It's just, I'm struggling not to make it 3 hours long because I'm going into grave detail and the whole plot of frickin' book. That's what happens when I've read it so many times that I basically know it by heart. We'll just get down to the nitty-gritty. I'll pretend that I've already explained the entire plot of the book to you. You know what? We're going to start off talking about the movie. Let's just do that. Let's just do that. We'll just start the movie. The movie. Okay. The movie, while visually stunning, and it's great if you separate it from the book and pretend it's its own thing on its own. It has just the characters happen to have the same names and it has the same title of the book. It's a great piece of media. It's beautiful, visually stunning, you know, soundtrack, one of the best. The story, unique and interesting. The characters, Howl is great, you know, he's great. Calcifer, great. Sophie, where's her personality? Seriously, where is it? It's missing. In the book, Sophie is so stubborn and she's so chaotic. She's just a walking disaster. She's constantly screwing everything up. She is angry throughout most of the book. She's filled with this anger. She's angry that she was turned into an old woman. She's angry about it being exploited by her mother for working at the hat shop for free. And getting forced to work at the hat shop. She's just, because she's the oldest, she feels like she has no other options but to work at the hat shop. And so when she gets turned into an old woman, she's like, here's my out. I have an excuse to leave. I have to go and break the curse on me. I have to leave. I have to go. And so she leaves, and she's like, she finally has a taste of freedom, and she stumbles into Howl's castle, and she's all like, oh, here's a fire demon. He can break the curse on me. And in the meantime, I can help him with his contract. And that is the whole purpose of the book, is Sophie trying to gain freedom, trying to break the curse and figure out what to do with her life after. And in the movie, she just wanders into Howl's castle because it's a place to stay. Well, in the book, true, she is looking for somewhere to spend the night. But she's like, actually, this could work out. In the movie, yeah, it's kind of like that too, but she kind of gets into this comfort, which is, you know, a thing with Studio Ghibli, like, it's comforting, you know, cozy, soft, which isn't a bad thing. Those are like some of my favorite adjectives, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's very found family, which is, the book is very found family too. In different ways though. The family in the book has a completely different dynamic than in the movie. In the movie, we have Markle, who is young. I'm guessing like 8 to 10. I don't know, children. He's a child. He's young. Howl's apprentice. And Sophie almost immediately is turned into the mother of this found family. She thinks she has to look after Howl because he is a whiny man baby, and she thinks she has to look after Markle because he is a literal child. And so she comes in and she's almost instantly gets slotted into the position of mom. And in the book, she is not. If anyone is the mom of that chaos family, it is Michael, who is not Markle. Markle is in no way Michael. Markle wishes he could be like Michael. Michael is a sweet cinnamon bun child. Well, he's 15, but still a child, but older than Markle, that just deserves everything in the world, and he deserves every happiness, and he needs to be protected at all costs. But he is very much the mother of the family, and he has been living with Howl around a year or two, and he's taken up the finances and making sure Howl doesn't spend all their money, and making sure that customers actually pay them, and like taking care of the shopping and all that. Where was I going with this? Yeah, Markle. Sophie becomes the mom of the group. That's where we were going with this. And that's part of the reason why I don't like the movie. There, I said it, I don't like the movie. Because Sophie, she's a woman, so she's the mom. That's basically, oh, she's the lady. There's a woman living here now, so she's the mom. She's taking care of everybody. It's just, they've stripped her of her whole personality. They've given her self-esteem issues, which she doesn't really have in the book. I mean, they're there a little bit, but like typical, it's like just a typical thing that every woman has, not to the extent of how it is in the movie, where she like actually says multiple times that she believes herself to be ugly. Like, there's a quote when Howl and Sophie are in the meadow, and I forget what Howl says, but Sophie's response is, "I can be of help to you even though I'm not pretty." What did they do to you, Sophie? You deserve better. Yeah. And what does she say when, I don't think I wrote it down. I don't think I wrote it down. But yeah, when Howl's having his fit, and she's just like, "I've never once been beautiful in my entire life." Like, and that's the only time that we see Sophie angry. Except for, at breakfast when the Witch of the Waste is mentioned, and Sophie's like, But like, she's angry throughout the entire book. She's angry about what has been dealt to her, and that continues through the entire book. Like, there is like a section where she's kind of calmed down a bit, and she's comfortable at Howl's castle and with Michael. Oh my god, I almost called him Markle. I'm so sorry, Michael. Oh, you did not deserve that. Anyway, yeah, she's comfortable with Michael. They have this routine, and Howl's off wooing people. That's all he's doing in the book, by the way. He's not disappearing to be some gallant birdman rescuing villages from bombs. No, he doesn't turn into a birdman. He's out trying to woo ladies, because that's who he is. Well, it starts out like that. He's out, he has an interest in Letty Hatcher, Sophie's sister. Yeah, so he starts off wooing Letty, and then he realizes she kind of looks like Sophie. And then he's just visiting Letty to try and get dirt on Sophie to figure out how to break her curse. And all the while, he's trying to run away from the Witch of the Waste, because the curse from the witch is sneaking up on him. Because, they dated, and he realized she was a little nuts, and he left. He ghosted her. and she's mad about it, which, you know, understandable. But also, in his defense, her fire demon has taken over her soul, so she's basically an evil person. Anyway, but yeah, Sophie, Howl's out wooing ladies, and Sophie's all grumpy about it because she's like, doesn't he have anything better to do with his life other than wooing ladies? And you know what? The most important thing that got left out of the movie, another reason why they did Sophie so dirty, is that she's a witch. Sophie's a witch. At one point, Howl wrecks one of his suits because, you know, it's got green slime all over it. Or something. I don't remember the order in which his suits get wrecked, but they all get wrecked. And Sophie mends them throughout the book. But anyway, yeah. He ruins one of his suits. Sophie's like, oh, I'll fix it for you. Give me something to do. Because she's already cleaned all the house and she's getting antsy. And Hal's like, you need to figure out what you want to do. And Sophie's like, oh, I'll mend your suit. Give me something to do if you don't want me poking into your business. Because she's nosy and she's been poking into his business. And so, yeah, she's mending his suit. And as she's stitching it up, she says, you were built to pull in the ladies. And little does she know is that she put a charm on that suit. So he becomes irresistible to women every time he wears it. So she's a witch. She talks life into things. They left that out of the movie. They made her the mom. They gave her self-esteem issues, and they stripped her of her magic. Those are the reasons why I'm angry with the movie about Sophie. And they made Howl this great, gallant, suave man who's out saving the world. And sure, he has his moments where he's a little, like, childish, but, you know, for the most part, he is out saving the world. He's sacrificing himself, using all his magic to turn into a birdman and saving the world from bombs. And in the book, Howl is such a coward. Sure, he's a little cowardly in the movie. He says he is, so we have to believe that he's a bit of a coward. But in the book, he's so cowardly. He tells himself over and over and over again that he's not doing something. And as he's telling himself that, he's convincing himself to do the thing. Like, I'm sure you can relate. I can relate to that. Like, oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. It's fine. I'm not doing it. As you're doing the thing, you know, to try and, you know, help yourself through the anxiety of being an adult, which is basically what Howl is doing throughout the whole book, is that he is trying to deal with adulthood the best way that he can. And, yeah, I relate. In the book, he's 27. I did the math. There's a moment that mentions how many days he's been alive, and, you know, I, punched it into my calculator and did the math. He's 27, 28, around there. Sophie, we don't know how old she is. I want to say early 20s. Don't know. But anyway, that's not important. But yeah, he's 27. He's having that quarter-life crisis where he's trying to adult the best way he can. He's realizing he's a magician and people want his services. Important people want his services. The king is requesting his services to find his brother who is missing. And Howl is so terrified of the Witch of the Waste and, like, saying he'll find the king's brother and then failing. He's afraid of the witch and he's afraid of failure, to the point where he's convincing himself that he's not doing things. in order to do them. And it's just so relatable and just so good. You know, it's so good to like read a book and just connect, relate to a character. And like Sophie in the book, she's so relatable because she also has no clue what she's doing with her life. And she turned into an old woman and she's like, well, what do I do now? Like, sure, I can leave the hat shop, but what do I do after that? And just, oh. And Howl with the Birdman thing, like, sure, it's an interesting idea. It's so interesting and neat. And like I said, if you haven't read the book, it's great. It's great for Howl that he is like this great, gallant character off saving the world, sacrificing himself to save innocent people. It's great for him. It's great. But like, I miss the simple Howl who just is afraid and doesn't know what he's doing, really. Like, he's this wizard with a great reputation, but he doesn't feel like he deserves it. He has imposter syndrome. Yes, he's very self-absorbed and very vain and all those things, but he's also got a bit of imposter syndrome, and he has that from his childhood trauma growing up with his sister. What is her name? I forgot her name. Did I write it down? What is his sister's name? Darn it. Megan. I remembered it. It's Megan. Or is that his... No, his niece's name is Mari. Megan. His sister Megan. Yeah. Who lives in Wales, which is where Howl is from. Howl is from Wales, and that is where the black portal leads to. On the door. The black. No. On the door. Leads to Wales. Where the worst thing there is his condescending sister, and not a war-torn countryside. Yeah. There's just so many things about the book that are great and wonderful and silly and fun and whimsical and just a great time that when I watch the movie, it makes me angry for the characters that this is what they got, that they were reduced to their genders, or they got turned into people they're not. Like, they all have the same names, but they're not who they are at the core. And it just makes me angry that when people who have watched the movie and love the movie do go and pick up the book, that they don't like the book because it's something completely different. They go into it expecting Howl to be this wonderful, gallant man who's so suave and it's so romantic, and they pick up the book and it's weird and it's funny and silly, and some of it doesn't make sense until the very end, and and I've seen reviews where people say that the characters aren't as fleshed out in the book as in the movie, and it just makes me so mad because I feel like they're not giving the book characters a proper chance, because they go into it and seeing that they're not the same, and so they're like, ew, who are these people? They're a mess. And it's like, I would much rather read a book about people who are disasters and trying to get their life together than perfect people who are beautiful and just are quiet and soft. And while I do like books about quiet things, soft. I like softness. I like those things. It's just, that's not what Howl and Sophie are. Their romance is not soft and beautiful and slow. It's a mess. It's a disaster. And like, Sophie's angry when she realizes that she has feelings for Howl. She's so angry about it. And because she didn't want to fall in love with Howl, she just didn't have any other choice. And for a while, she thinks it's the suit. She thinks that she charmed herself with the charm that she put on Howl's suit. And she's, for a chunk of the book, she's trying to get that suit off of him and get him to change into a different suit so she can take the spell off of it. But she realizes that she still is attracted to him when he's wearing a different suit. And she kind of panics a bit because she's like, well, I'm an old woman. I can't be with Howl. That's weird. But yeah, and the whole time is her. She's keeping the spell on herself because she's too afraid to face her feelings and be young again. She's been comfortable as an old woman. She's kind of lost the insecurities she's had as a young woman, and she realizes she can do whatever she wants, and so she's afraid. She likes being a witch, and she's afraid that when she goes back to being a young woman that she's just gonna have to go back to the hat shop again. And then when at the point in the book when she realizes that the hat shop's been sold and it's no longer a business, and she's confused because that's one less thing to keep herself as an old woman. But she's still too afraid to turn back into a young woman because she doesn't know how to deal with her feelings. And it's just so good. And like, I do like in the movie when Sophie's mind is not on the curse, like when she's not thinking about it, like when she's sleeping, in a few occasions when she's awake, that she turns back into a young woman because you realize she's the reason like she's keeping the curse on herself. I like that in the movie. I like that detail a lot. There, see, I complimented the movie. But yeah, it's just, I just have so much passion for Howl and Sophie, how they are in the book, and I think it's because I see myself a lot in both of them. And I just, the fact that their flaws get taken away from them in the movie, like Howl is allowed to be flawed because he's a man and he's allowed to have flaws, but Sophie's flaws completely stripped from her, and it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Like, let them be flawed. Just let them be flawed. I mean, I don't know if any of this video is gonna be coherent at all. But you know what? It's chaos. Sophie is chaotic. Howl is a walking disaster. You know, what else can this video be but chaos? I'm chaotic. I have no clue what I'm doing with anything. And yeah. That's it. That's my feelings. Yeah, let me just skim through my notes. I'm just gonna read you a couple of my favorite quotes from the book, actually, that I feel like sum up the characters really well. You can skip this part of the video, I don't care. One of my favorite quotes, I have a sticker designed. I will leave the link in the description for my Redbubble if you want a sticker with this quote and a little doodle that I did of Howl's Castle, the way it looks in the book, not the movie version. Things were bound to be odd where wizards were concerned. I just did a fun little quote. And then here's a quote from Calcifer, who, okay, Calcifer is the only character in the movie that I have no complaints about because he's perfect. Especially, you know, if you're listening to the dubbed version, you know, Billy Crystal can't get better than that. Anyway, and Calcifer says, Howl is pretty useless at most things. Which, you know, sums up Howl pretty well. And here's another good one about Howl, which Michael says, Howl hates being pinned down to anything. Sophie had never found Howl particularly frightening. Now she felt nothing but contempt. I don't remember what was happening at that point. I just wrote these down at random. Oh, here we go. Here's a quote that sums up Sophie pretty well. You're dreadfully nosy, horribly bossy, appallingly clean old woman. You control yourself. You're victimizing us all. And then he goes on to say, Howl goes on to say, I have a right to live in a pigsty if I want. And then Sophie says to Howl later, you're a slither outer. That's what you are. You slither away from anything you don't like. Okay, here was a good one for Howl. Howl's very fickle. He's only interested until the girl falls in love with him. Then he can't be bothered with her. That's another thing too, is that he's not like wooing these ladies and then ghosting them just for fun. He doesn't have his heart anymore, so he's you know, wooing all these ladies, getting to know them, trying to figure out if he can still properly love someone without his heart. And it's just like, like that is so like sad and heartbreaking. Like, he's not ghosting them because he's mean. He's ghosting them because he's literally heartless. He doesn't have a heart, and he's realizing like he doesn't have any feelings for these women, and he's kind of panicking about it. Like, what if I can never properly love anybody? But we realize that he loves people just in his own way, even without his heart. Oh, this is my favorite quote that Sophie says about Howl. Howl sends her to the king to blacken his name so he can get out of looking for his brother, the king's brother. And so Sophie goes there and she says, I have to blacken his name. Her mind was such a blank that for a second it actually seemed to her that Howl had no faults at all. How stupid. Well, he's fickle and careless and selfish and hysterical, she said. Half the time, I think he doesn't care what happens to anyone as long as he's all right. But then I find out how awfully kind he's been to someone. Then I think he's kind just when it suits him. Only then I find out that he undercharges poor people. I don't know, Your Majesty. He's a mess. You have no right to walk into people's castles and take their guitars. At one point, Howl gets very drunk in the book. And he says, I assure you, my friends, I am consoled sober. And then he proceeds to fall up the stairs and crash into his bedroom door several times before he is able to actually get into the bedroom. Anyway, you know what? I should probably... Oh, wait. The end quote. I need to read that. Okay. Here's what I was going on earlier about Howl talking himself out of doing things in order to do them. There's a quote, a direct quote from the book that says, I'm a coward. Only way I can do something frightening is to tell myself I'm not doing it. And then here's the quote at the end of the book. Howl said, "I think we ought to live happily ever after." And she thought he meant it. It should be hair-raising. "And you'll exploit me," Sophie said. "And then you'll cut up all my suits to teach me," said Howl. The end. Yeah. I just, you know, yes, the movie is visually stunning, and it is a good movie if you separate it from the book, which I try to do, but I have a lot of trouble doing so because I have read the book so many times and I know the characters so well, and it's just hard for me not to compare the two when I'm watching the book. I hope you can't, not when I'm watching the book, when I'm watching the movie. I hope you can hear my stomach growling. Anyway, yeah, it's just, I feel like Miyazaki had this great idea for this character with Howl, where he, you know, is sacrificing himself, changing into this Birdman, rescuing people, and there's a war and chaos and all this stuff. He had this great idea. He just couldn't fit it into anything else, and so he took the work and characters by Diana Wynne Jones and squeezed it into there, and in doing so, he got rid of the heart of the story, the heart of the book, and I don't know, it just makes me a little sad that these characters don't have a proper adaptation and that most people know them as their movie versions when they are so great in the book. I'm not saying they're not great in the movie. I mean, in their own right, they're good in the movie. It's just, these characters deserve to be known. They deserve to be known. I've been holding up that book and I've been meaning to hold up this one because this is the most. They deserve more. I guess that's it. We'll see when I'm going through these clips if any of this makes any sense. If I have put together any coherent thoughts at all. I'm just sad for Howl and Sophie. And Michael, since he doesn't exist. And Martha, since Martha, it doesn't exist at all. Whereas you could argue that Markle is Michael, even though I very much disagree. Martha isn't even in the movie at all. And Letty is just reduced to a pretty girl that works at the bakery. When they both of Sophie's sisters have so much more about them. And it's just... And what's with the Witch of the Waste at the end of the movie being their friend and like living in their house? Like, she's the villain. I don't understand. She literally in the book wants to chop Howl's head off. She's making a perfect man, and she's collected Prince Justin and Wizard Solomon and have fused them together into some Frankenstein. Did I write that quote down? Hold on. I don't think I did. No, I didn't. Why didn't I write that down? But at one point, Sophie says to the witch, "You have no right to make jigsaws out of people," which is just such a great quote. You have no right to make jigsaws out of people. But yeah. There's so much more that I could get into, but I really shouldn't for the sake of this video, for just not making it so long. I'm sorry that this was chaos. If you watched to the end, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry if this makes no sense. Who knows if I'll even post it. Oh, yeah. Anyway, yeah. I think I've said all I should say. It could go on forever and ever and ever. Now, you know how my friends feel like when I get into a rant about Howl's Moving Castle and I just basically spew nonsense at them for hours and hours and hours and hours. Anyway, I am not the person you want to watch the movie with. Do not watch Howl's Moving Castle with me. I am very annoying. Yeah, like I said, you know, the movie is beautiful. It's visually stunning. It's great as its own separate thing. But if you haven't given the book a chance, please do. Please do. And like stick with it, because let me tell you a little secret. I hated this book the first time I read it because it wasn't like the movie. But then I gave it another shot. I read it again a couple years later and I absolutely loved it, and I continue to love it, and I will love it till my dying day. Every time I reread it, I pick up more about the characters. Like, there's just subtle things throughout the book that just are just so great and wonderful, and Howl and Sophie deserve so much more. Michael deserves more. Kelsey's great. He nailed him pretty well in the movie. Martha deserves to exist. Letty's story deserves to be something other than just the pretty girl that works at the bakery. Howl and Sophie deserve to have their flaws. That's it. That's all I have to say. I haven't eaten anything yet today, so I'm starving. Is probably reason why this video is complete nonsense. But anyway, before I ramble on anymore and say the same things over and over and over again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Give me a like if you want. Please don't dislike this video. These are all my opinions. I'm allowed to have them. If your opinions are different, that's fine. All I ask is that you be kind. I'm not gonna hate you if you like the movie better. It just makes me a little sad. But that's fine. You know, this book is not for everybody. I understand that. The movie is more universally loved. But this book, they deserve more attention, more love, and that's all I have to say. I hope I explained the reasons why I don't like the movie well enough for you not to hate me. And I hope I didn't hate on the movie too much for you to not think that I'm just trying to be negative about the movie, trying to find reasons to hate it when I'm really not, because it is a very beautiful movie. But yeah. Please don't hate me. Yeah, that's it. Bye.